Hey guys.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Hey,
Can't,
Chris.
can't believe it's the last day. Crazy. You guys
Last
are
one.
Yeah,
graduating.
we are all sad now.
Oh man. It goes so fast, man. Like every time, it's like you start like the first week, it starts kind of slow and then like builds up, it's like and then people sometimes like I don't know where this is going, right? I never know where this is going either. I mean, like I'm always surprised by the it's like how the character turns out at the end because I have no idea where it's going ever. But it starts slow and then we build up and then all of a sudden we're speeding up and then all of a sudden like it's like last week we're like it's still going super fast with a lot of information. But it's been a pleasure, man. Like as usual, it's like with all the groups I have, like it's normally like very good, group of people, hard worker guys, and I just appreciate you guys like uh, putting your trust in someone like me. um, yeah, very cool. We're gonna talk about the experience later and stuff. I kind of like put a few things here. I want to make sure I tackle before we kind of go to something a little bit more relaxed at the end. But yeah, let's talk a little bit more technical stuff in here just to make sure and open for questions and stuff. We can open a bunch of scenes after that. But let me just make sure I have this stuff going here. So since yesterday, the thing that I did some more work on the hair. So like my not final, but at least like that's what I could have for today. Is basically like it looks like this. It's basically the same breakup that I had yesterday. The only change I did was just like the hair itself. The guides, I actually changed the guides, like some of my modifiers. The noise, I changed some of the noise in there, so it looks a little bit better. The final render, I did this one today, not final, obviously. I still have to do the clothing. We're going to be talking about the clothing later, but this I did like with the higher resolution. The you see like the beard is too dense. I'm actually reducing the density quite a lot. I'm gonna keep like probably like maybe half of this. I ended up like adding too much, and also when I selected my area yesterday, like the polygons, I ended up like missing this edge right there. It would be nice to have something. So I'm actually gonna do a little grooming just now. What I'm gonna do, I'm probably gonna do add a little bit of peach fuzz around here, and at the end of the peach fuzz, kind of blend with something a little bit thicker, just like to cover that area in there. But overall, I mean, like the intention is always to make sure that the characters look alive, right? So I think that was I was able to achieve with this guy here. Now it's up to the fine tuning. It's like for example, Carbuncle, I never had the chance to actually sculpt it. I can do a little bit of sculpting just to show you guys in there as well. Make sure that everything is tight. The eyebrows, basically, like I groomed that first day with you guys, and I didn't change things that much after that. So all this stuff here has to have like some of them are gonna get a little thinner. I'm probably gonna have to add some other spread out like very thin ones around here, and add like a pass that's just like a blending between the eyebrows and the peach fuzz. So either I can do with a secondary pass, just like we did the blending hair with those little guys in there, that little pass, just like selecting some edges around here, some faces around that area. I can do the same like around here, around the eyebrows, get some blenders in there, or I can just like use the peach fuzz and just like grow them and make them a little bit thicker. The problem with that, if I use the peach fuzz, is that I'm probably gonna have to use a color map to make sure that it's like they are not gonna go blonde, right? Because the peach fuzz is very blonde, and eyebrows much darker. So I would have to have like a black and white map to control that. And you can do that in ZBrush as well. I mean, like you can go back to ZBrush and paint a map, for example, that has like the color that you want for like the hairs themselves, right? And let's say like you want like a very controlled, let's say like a chunk of like white hair just in this area here. You just have to identify where the root is. So if the hair is starting around here, and you're gonna paint right there at the root, for example, like it's going to be the opposite. So if you want like white hair, you're going to have to paint black basically. So you can put like a black spot in there, and everything else white. You should get like black hair with a little, white in there. You just have to plug this as your melanin pass, and then that should give you like a nice result in there. Also, it's not just the melanin pass. We didn't mention this before, but uh, here, if you go to the shader for the hair, so you have the melanin here, right? You can just plug a black and white map in here. It should obey. But to reinforce that color, you can plug the same map in the base, because the base here is basically is telling you that either you're going to go like if you remove the melanin, it's going to go this color here. So basically, like if you remove the melanin completely, it ends up like when you add in both channels, it gets more clear, but it's like salt and pepper, you know. So sometimes it's better if you can assign to both of them. But also, another thing I didn't mention about the hair is that let's pretend you want to have like a different color at the roots, right? Actually, the hair is when you create those hairs, the system creates a kind of like a pseudo UV in them. So each one of those hairs have like a possibility of using a gradient. So if you use, for example, like for the color or the melanin, you put like a gradient plugged in here, for example, like a Maya gradient. I believe it has to be vertical, so it's like a V gradient. You can actually control the root to tip color of the hair, which is really cool. So you can do that, and also obviously like painting a map for the face itself, right? That's gonna get which what I told you, like different colors for the salt and pepper and stuff like that. But going back in here, so things for me to do in here, I have to do this piece in here is going to be quite complicated. I found some references of the real thing. Is like it's full of little details. This should be simpler. I'm going to sculpt this just like mostly like folds and stuff. And this should be simpler as well, just like with some, obviously it's going to be like a sculpture, work in there, but it shouldn't be too complicated. And then for him, I want to make sure that those hairs going to blend. So I'm going to bring some of those little guys in here, probably around here more randomly. So I have a line that's very defined there. I'm going to just like sprinkle some of them more spread out. Some of those spores in here, they're still, those ones are okay, but here they look a little bit mechanical. So I'm probably going to introduce some more variation in there, kind of like sculpt some of them by hand, just make sure that breaks up a little bit. Lips are looking a little bit too, they are soft, but also they lack a little bit of detail, they lack some depth. So I can carve some of those guys a little bit deeper in here, and also add more breakups to the surface so it doesn't look like it's so glossy. I can get a little bit more breakup in there for sure. Like my specular levels, I have to kind of like calibrate a little bit. I like what I have like around the eyes, but nose in here might go down just a little bit, maybe a little bit lower here as well on the sides, maybe a little bit lower in here by just like painting that black and white map I have in ZBrush and bringing it back here. But and then yeah, hair I still have to keep working a little bit. Right now everything is basically like just deformers, right? Like modifiers. I still have to get like some of those guides and style them in a way that it breaks profile. For example, if I want to get a curl down here, I would just like get one of those, for example, like create another 2 or 3 guides close together, pretty close in the surface, and generate like little curls and stuff. And then if I still cannot achieve the result, because what might happen here is because I have those like 3 different layers of noise, anything I do with the curves, it might get destroyed because it's so many like modifiers on top. So if that happens, what I can do, I can go, for example, and sculpt the hair itself, just like I did with Jessica, right? So sculpt the hair itself. I would select a little chunk of hair in there, pull it to create the curl perfectly the way I want, and just have that one laying not below 3 layers of noise, but maybe like below like 1 layer of noise, so it doesn't lose its form too much. It can have you play, it's like you can sculpt it, and then you can move up and down in the hierarchy here. So for example, I have the hair. So if I would sculpt something here, for example, select a little chunk of hair. Let's do this like as a simulation here. So I would do like we did before. So I would get like a add modifier, and then I would do like a sculpt modifier. And you see it's on top of the noise in here. I would probably bring it like maybe down like 2 layers like that and sculpt around here. But to do that, I would just like remove all the modifiers first, just to make sure I can see what I'm doing there. So you see like this is the one that's actually coming from the guides themselves, right? So I would start with something more like a little simpler like this. And then I would basically go back in here to my main hair, make sure that you have your new sculpt layer with the edit on, right? So I would just go, oops, we'll just go smaller like that. And let's say like I want to break up something around this little edge in here. Just select a little chunk, make sure I can orbit around, and then deselect the rest that I don't need. So let's say if it was something just to create a little chunk in there, I can just do something like this, and then just go to this guy here, to the comb brush. And then the only thing you have to do is make sure that in the settings you have invert frozen effect, right? So in that case here, there's another brush I didn't mention too much. Like this one is the comb, but there's this one here that actually moves stuff. It's a grab tool. They work kind of similarly, but this one here, you have the option to stretch things. So if you take off this little check mark here, like the preserve length, you can actually stretch things. But what happens when you stretch it, obviously like the spans for each one of those hair strands going to be stretched. So you might get like some weirdness. For example, like you're going to lose resolution if you stretch stuff too much. Obviously, you can also rebuild the entire thing at the end, you know, but just remember, like if you have a lot of CVs like I have, it's a lot of hair with a lot of CVs, things get very, very heavy, as it is heavy already here, right? But for example, if I grab those guys, oh, sorry, I have to click my invert frozen effect. So if I get those guys now, let's get like a bigger brush in here. So I can actually get all of that stuff and I can stretch as much as I want, something like that, for example. Just if you're gonna do this, do it a bigger brush so it doesn't break the CVs too much, you know. And then I can actually shape this the way I want. I go back to my like comb brush, and I can create a little curl, like perfectly the way I want. You know, it's like I'm just like doing as a little concept in here. But I mean, I could shape this one exactly the way I wanted. I could have like, for example, like I can split this. So if I have something like this around this area, and I think it's a little boring, you see like it's a little bit wide in there, I can actually go from another angle. You actually get this stuff all like closer together. Let's do something like that. Right? And then let's say if you have something like this, that you're breaking up the profile in there, all of a sudden you want to just deselect part of it. So if I go back now to here, let's turn on some of those modifiers. Some of them probably going to destroy what I did in there. So you have to make sure that, for example, like those changes I did, obviously, I think I did the wrong thing here, because I would have to have this noise from the guides on in order for me to pull this, because what I did in here, now when I turn it on, it's going to get completely obliterated. But if you did this with the noise on, that means that this would override whatever you have in the noise. It would be like the relative. So it's going to be destroyed. Let's see. Noise. Yeah, I got destroyed in there. So with this one on now, that basically, like, let's pretend like I'm starting fresh here. I would basically get this guy. Let's do like very low here so I can actually see what I'm doing. Then you can reshape it, and then basically this becomes like the rebel in there, right? It kind of like, that's the one you're gonna do. So yeah, I forgot to turn it on first, because this is a strong deformer in there I'm using, and you have the clump as well. So let's see with the noise, what's gonna happen with the noise. So yeah, like that's what I'm saying. I was like, I would have to have like probably like those guys here in place, and then I would have to sculpt on top of them. Otherwise, I would be basically like countering everything. At this point here, I would have to smooth things out. For example, like counter with this smooth brush. Let's do like a collided meshes invert, this one. So I would basically like invert this and just like smooth them out, and then do the whole reshape again, you know. Yeah, it's like, it's a matter of like doing accordingly to whatever is underneath, you know. It's like if I have everything off, it speeds up things, but then obviously if your deformers are too strong, you're gonna end up like destroying things. But at this point here, since most of the deformers are on, I would be able to actually, you know, like sculpt the curl the way I want it, and then probably like add another 2 noise passes, and that would, you know, break it up a little bit to something more natural, like this, without like completely destroying it. You still at this point here, you can actually go and sculpt, but since you have now the noise modifiers on top of it, it's going to get slower to sculpt. So I would kind of like maybe like just the ones on top of it, I would just turn it off. So you can actually go there and then tweak the whole thing, you know. But yeah, it's like you have a lot of flexibility. You can actually do all kinds of stuff with the hair. I can actually select multiple areas, you know, so I can do a similar thing, like, you know, as I get just like a little chunk right there, another chunk like right here, and then make sure that you deselect stuff, you know, it's like if you're not going to use like just that little chunk, and then something like this. And then that way you can just go and then resculpt it. So like this, I would just like get a little curl the opposite direction in here, something like that. And then when you add the noise, it should work good. The noise is going to help to break up the super perfect curvature that I have in here. Like it looks like it's super, you know, it's like artificial. So you can get like the curve the way you want, and then you can just say like, okay, add some noise in there, and then some more noise, and then all of a sudden you have little fancy hair in there, right? So this is the kind of stuff I'm gonna have to go very carefully, you know, it's like pick just a few areas, for example, around here, add one of those curls breaking up like the hair in there. Because I mean, when I look at this, right, like it looks cool around here, but then you could use maybe some curls, specific ones around here, maybe some one around here, you know, it's like another one kind of breaking up the profile a little bit, maybe some showing like the direction of the hair around here. So I can do selectively, you know, it's like just add some areas that have like some more specific curls to help me out. So yeah, so let's just, oh, it's auto-saving. And last time he tried to autosave with all the hair visible like this, he crashed pretty good. He got some, oh, he actually auto-saved now and didn't crash. That's bizarre. It's because it's the last day in class. I think it's being nice to me. So just gonna do this stuff here because I want to actually groom just under the lip in there, just add a little blending stuff. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about the render settings here for this guy. I was rendering for the stuff I posted on Instagram yesterday. I posted like 4 different pictures. Let's see, this is the old stuff, right? Evolved a little bit. So those ones here, right? 4 different lighting setups. And each one of them was rendering 1200 by 1200. And this took about 9 minutes and 40 seconds for each one, which was great. So like less than 10 minutes per frame and in 1200 by 1200. So it was really good. And that's basically why I switched to this settings in here, you know, in general, you know, because in the past I would crank too much diffusing here, too much specular. And turns out that most of the noise that's coming from your renders are either coming like from the area lights with low samples. So if you have an area light, make sure you have like, let's say 8 samples or something like that, or even higher, or from the subsurface scattering. So if I use like, just like in the past, I had like probably 2 for subsurface scattering, you're going to see a lot of noise. So instead of like using a lot of diffusing specular, I keep it very low. So 1, 2, 3, 4, easy to remember, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 10. Basically, this one is the main anti-alias, right? I was using before like 8. Now I'm using 10. So this one you can get like super fast renders. You know, it's like this, like full of hair and all this stuff for like 10 minutes. You know, super. In comparison to what I had before, you would take like probably like 40 minutes for something like that. You know, and look at the quality.
Chris?
Yes.
I was told once, and you can verify this for me, I guess. You know how you have 10, 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4 adds up to 10. I heard that the camera and then the 4 underneath have to be the same number. You know,
no,
like the 4 add up to the camera.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, it's like in the past I would just like everything I would control with this big number because it's the main anti-alias, right? It's the one that actually I thought that those ones are multipliers basically. So they would multiply by whatever you have in here in terms of anti-alias, right? So that's why I thought it worked like that. So it would be basically like multipliers of that number. But in terms of like,
I guess it does work. I guess that does work just to make sure they add up to the top.
Yeah. But yeah, man, it's pretty impressive because like this is actually speeding up the renders by like a factor of like 4 or 5 times, you know, and I'm not getting noise like in the skin like I was having before, like it was full of noise. So it's getting like much smoother. And in general, for like posts on Instagram, I mean, like 1200 by 1200 like this in 9 to 10 minutes, that's pretty good. Although my machine is pretty fast here, but you know, it's like even my old machine, I think it would take probably like 25 minutes or something like that, which is pretty good for 1200 by 1200, considering how much we complain about how slow Arnold is. I mean, like with the setting like this, I really like what I did in there in terms of, you know, poking around with those settings and testing stuff. So let's take a look here. So what did I save this in? Oh, it actually was autosave, right? So I don't want that autosave. So this one was saved from yesterday. And when I saved it, the only thing I did was to actually change the density, right, of the hair. So from 800, I switched to 100 and saved. So it saves much faster. But in this case here, I'm just going to go full on to fill up that whole area there. Another thing I realized I did yesterday was that, remember I had this thickness of the hair. I went like starting very thin and then getting thicker, right? Like by changing the curve. I actually changed too much. So basically like the root was getting super thin. So he was getting bald around this area. So what I mean is this. So if you go like to the main attributes in here of the main hair, so I had like this curve in here. Look what's going to happen in there. This is going to go bald. I had this thing here very, very low like this. Let's check this out. Like he goes bald in there, right? So now I actually, decided to just, okay, I'm going to go up in here, and then I'm going to bring this root like that. Not like full on thickness, but a little bit thinner than the rest of the hair. This is not physically accurate because like the hair definitely is going to start thicker and then gets smaller. But it, to me, is easier to actually blend things and look more natural when I have a little bit of that, the hair kind of disappears a little bit. So it's almost like simulating this little second pass here of this kind of like a longer fuzz, right? Like just those blending ones in here. It kind of simulates a little bit of that like in the root in there. So that's basically why I did it. And most of the hair, I do that as well. So I'm going to just hide things here. Just like this hair is super heavy right now. And I'm going to hide my blend as well. I still have to work on that. And what else do I have to hide here? That's the stuff I don't need. So it goes faster for me to play with. Yeah, so this area here, look how weird it looks like without that, right? I'm going to add just like a little pass right around the lips in here. Another description. I could use the peach fuzz itself to do that and just grow it longer. But I'm going to need a little bit darker. So I'm going to start with use the same color I'm using for those guys. Just add a little pass in here. So just going to go here and let's get symmetry again. I know sometimes it's a little boring to repeat certain steps that we kind of went over, but at the same time for you guys to remember, it's kind of good too. So let's see. Let's go get here. So I need, like you see, I'm ending this around here. I need at least another 2 spans here. So I'm going to do something like this. And then if it's growing over the lips, then I can actually remove some of that. But you see like the importance of having like an edge flow that actually follows the forms, right? Like following the contours of the lips. Same thing for the eyelashes, right? Same thing. I mean, like if I had this all over the place, like in zigzag, when I placed my eyelashes in there, they would not look correct, right? So having an edge flow that actually follows perfectly the curvature is very important for specific areas like those, like lips and eyes. So if I have something like this, now I can actually grow some fuzz. I could potentially go even around here, but I don't think those are going to be that visible. So I'm just going to go and focus on those guys. Going to just create like interactive, and that's going to be like let's see, like lower. Like my keyboard is always underneath the monitor. Lower lip fuzz, something like that. Very descriptive. And then let's start with 300. So that's like 1358. And then the length, let's do a little bit longer. Maybe not. Let's see. That should be good. Let's see, 8. Let's do more CV count here. Something like 32. So let's try that. Let's see how it looks like. Okay, so not too bad. So for those guys here, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to use any silly guides because guides are for losers, right? We all know that by now. We do this like real people here. No, it's just like, for certain things you actually don't need it. Let's do this, and then let's do sculpt. So I'm just going to get this. Double check if you have the invert frozing. That one actually messes you up all the time. Before you start this, let's just get the scale to look a little bit smaller. So every time you create any description, you have an automatic scale created for you. So just going to go smaller like this, and then I can grow it with the sculpt brush on top. So just going to brush this down, something like that. Very like, simple stuff, just like down, kind of like following the contours in there. Let's see from the side in here. I can bring these ones out a little bit like that, so they poke out a little bit. And now let's do like, let's reduce the thickness of them quite a bit. So let's do this, let's see. So let's do like thickness. Let's get to the main one in here. And then another, instead of like 0.10, let's try like 0.07. maybe like 0.06, actually 0.6. 6 like that, I think should be good. And then let's assign the same shader. So I'm gonna assign my, which one is that? Let's see, let's just grab this one. Lower lip stubble, let's get the stubble. So graph, materials, let's assign the same shader to this guy right here. There you go. And now let's play with the curves in here. So first thing, you're gonna turn on the tube shading, right? So you can see as little tubes. Then I'm gonna go all the way down to Arnold and turn from ribbon to thick. For everything I did here so far, I did the same thing. And then let's play with the curve again. It's like same thing for all the hairs I ever did for this model. It's always the same procedure. I just wish we could copy all those settings, you know, from one description to the other one. That would save so much time. But this is the root right here, so I'm gonna keep it a little bit thicker, and then I'm gonna make this thinner towards the tips. Something like that. Let's go up a little bit down here. Something like that. Let's try that, like that. So now I have all those little guys in there. Let's try to create some blending. So let's do, maybe I should switch this to something a little bit more like peach fuzz, to tell the truth. But yeah, let's just do like this. So let's try to grow them. So around this area, we're gonna make them a little bit longer. And then we're gonna use our magical modifier, the noise, right? Something like that. Let's do like a noise. So let's just brush this a little bit more towards the center in here. And then I might make them a little bit more pale, you know, maybe assign like a custom shader for them specifically. And then, so even for those guys there. So let's do like a modifier and then noise, which should help like straight away to break that whole thing. And then preserve the length. I can do that, or just like let it do its own thing. Maybe some variation is good, so I can keep like halfway. Magnitude doesn't need to be too broad, but I mean, like I said, if you do something that looks okay in the viewport, that means when you render, it's gonna look too straight. So crank it so you can actually see it. And then the frequency, I think we are good. We don't need to change it. Maybe a little bit less frequency. It's actually not even affecting here. Oh, it's because of the frequency starts at the root. So that means like we have to do that little trick, right? Go to the modifier of the spline, the curve, and you start this to deform a little bit closer to the root, right? Don't ever move the root because you create those problems with the, you know, breaking the roots, but like close enough to the root so you can start the curvature a little bit earlier, you know, so it looks a little bit more natural. And then if it's full on, like, you know, curly at the end. So now with that in mind, if I render this one, it's probably not going to look that great. Let me just duplicate my shader just in case if I need to do a little tweak. So let's do like mouth fuzz for the next shader. I'm creating a brand new shader. Basically, it's a copy. I'm doing the other monitor here, but I can show you guys. It's like I just kept my mustache in there, right? And then I just selected it and I press Control D to duplicate, and I just rename it mouth fuzz. So I'm gonna just use that one and assign to it because I can play with you know, it's like with, oh, funny, it refused to actually assign. Let's see, mustache, weird. Let's see, fuzz.
Is that the hair shader you're using, or the?
Oh, this is always like the AI hair, yeah, physical hair from Arnold every time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, it's really good. It's funny, it's not allowing me to assign that for some reason. But anyway, let's see, like if I change, let's do a quick render of this and see if the positioning is good enough. And then obviously I can actually blend some of them to kind of make them disappear by using that same tweak, right? Like same trick, selecting the sculpt, and then in the width brush, I can just go in here and then make them disappear. Let's do like a -1, so minimum width and maximum width at 1. So I can definitely go and just like make them disappear straight away like that. So I can just remove some of them, especially here. Not gonna go too crazy because I want to see the render first. maybe it's a little bit too much in there. You know, it's like maybe they are too curly for that specific region. Maybe a little bit too crazy with the magnitude. Let's try a little bit like that. And then let's try a little render and see what happens. So yeah, you see, like sometimes we get like too trapped in this thing about like, okay, I'm gonna just apply the same hair in the whole fucking thing, right? And then you just like use masks to tweak things here and there. And meanwhile, if you just create different descriptions, you know, it's like they are very light because you're just selecting specific polygons to apply it to it. So it's very light to work with. And oh, I have my depth of field here super strong. Let me turn it off. And then we're gonna go over the render stuff. So I turn it off by going to diagnostics, right? And this just like clicking this one, ignore depth of field. It's easier to just like work that way with a little override. But let's see how that thing turned out here in the render. Let's see. So you see now we have like this little blending little hairs in there, a little bit thinner. But here's gonna be a combination, right? Like first, those ones in here, they are looking a little bit too thick, right? So I would like a nicer transition here. So probably what I'm gonna have to do later is gonna be like to go back to the stubble pass, make those little guys a little bit thinner so they can blend with those next ones in there. Oh, actually I don't have like, let me just switch my progressive render. It's kind of off. So it's gonna take forever to render just that way. Not forever, but minutes, right? Instead of a couple of seconds. Let's just select a little area like this and let it do its thing. You see, like those ones are a little bit too close to the lips. It's starting to touch the lips in there. So probably gonna, you know, just like remove some of those ones by using that little technique in there, just like making them look super thin that basically like the render doesn't show them. So I can do that, or maybe like shrink them to like the length as well, you know. But it's always important to have like some kind of like transition parts, you know. In this case here, yeah, it would be nice if they're like halfway between the peach fuzz and the color of the hair. So it would have to be kind of like a light brown. So that's the next step, you know. It's like, I don't know what I did there, that the shader is not working for them. But I'm gonna try to fix this later, you know. It's like just assign like a kind of like a brown kind of color. So it has like a transition between something that's super thin like the peach fuzz and then something very thick like this. And just kind of like something in between, you know, just like we did with the hair in there. So that should work. I'm gonna save this one because I don't want to lose this little pass. But to save it, what I'm gonna do, first I'm gonna add this stuff back so it doesn't look too weird, right? Especially without the eyebrows and eyelashes. And then I'm gonna go to my main hair and let's bring this one down again before I save it. This is being like so important, you know. It's like otherwise I'm getting those weird crashes. The scene starts like piling up with stuff, you know, and a lot of hair descriptions and stuff. So like saving it light is important. So it's a pain that I have to switch every time, but it's been important. I lost a couple of not hours, but like many minutes, like because of crashes related to the scene being too heavy, you know. So let's see. Let's talk about the render settings in here. So I spoke about like those ones right here, right? But I didn't speak about the render settings for like the render itself, like the camera settings. So I'm just gonna go to the camera itself. So view, select camera. And then if you scroll down all the way in your camera attributes, that's where the Arnold stuff is, right? Remember that I mentioned before, I believe I did, that if you turn on the display heads up display and object details, right? You get this little tab in there. So if I could just dock this one, you're gonna see, so it's gonna show up and then disappear, right? Object detail. So this one shows the distance from the camera, which is very important for depth of field, right? So let's say you have an eyeball like that, and that eyeball actually contains my my iris. So it has the pupil, it has the iris. I didn't even rename them yet, right? But if you click, like, let's say you want the focus to be right in the pupil, you can use this one. See the value in here is 89.775. And then if I click this one, the value is like 89,984, right? So like I said before, what you can do, you can actually copy this tab because, not this tab, but the camera. So let's do like a select camera and then copy tab. So I have a copy of the camera tab in here. And now I can actually go and click whatever object and I still have the camera available, right? So it's easier to see. So if I go all the way down to Arnold, now it's easier for me to just click different objects and just translate that number right there into my distancing here. So if I click, for example, like I want to focus right at the middle of the iris, right, which is this object in here. So if I click the iris itself, I get 89,984. So I'm gonna copy here 89.984. You see that this looks like was red before, now it looks pink. It's because I had a keyframe, and now I'm kind of trying to override the keyframe. So if I move to a different frame, this is going to go away because the keyframe was not set, the new one, right? So to set up a keyframe, you right-click in the word focus distance, right-click right here, and say set key. So now I have a key. So if I go to another different angle, I'm going to have to set it again to the corresponding distance, right? So now the distance in this camera here, I have 72.22. So I'm going to have to match 72.22. And then right click, set. Same thing for this guy here. So from this angle here, that's 78.114. I'm going to set camera. So when I start rendering stuff, I can just render in batch, you know, it's like, and everything should render with the focus right at the iris, you know. So that's important. The other thing that I'm doing, if you notice, like the render itself, there's a vignetting that's happening here. It's like it's a little bit darker at the edges, right? So basically, like the camera, a lot of those lenses, like the very best lenses, they don't have a lot of vignetting, you know, happening. You get like the same kind of brightness like across the board. But some lenses are really good actually and have that built in almost like as a feature, you know. It's like I have like a Sigma 85, for example, that has a beautiful bokeh. It's kind of like it competes with a camera Canon 85. 1.2, but this one I have is actually 1.4. So it's a beautiful buttery depth of field that produces, but it also produces like an automatic kind of vignetting that's kind of nice. You know, it goes very nicely with the depth of field. But the thing is, like normally, if you want to have absolute control about the vignetting, I'd rather use like the Alien Skin plugin I showed you guys the other day. It has like a perfect a setting for that. Like it's the whole session in there is just dedicated to vignetting. You know, you can start like from the middle part all the way extend to the outside. You know, but this case here, he's gonna be rendered a little bit bald because I removed some of his hair right now. But let's take a look. For example, if I render him like this, just to have an idea. Oh, and probably gonna have to actually turn off the. Let's see. Is it rendering? Is it thinking about it? Let's try to do like a, oh, okay, it's rendering now. Let's see if the depth of field is on or not. No, it should be off. Okay, so you're gonna see right here. So this should be like just like a quick render. You see like you have a lot of vignetting happening there. You can do this artificially here inside of Arnold as well. So that's what I have in here. So you see like under filter map, by default, you don't have anything plugged in here. It's just like an empty box. But if you click the little checker box right here, right, then you can plug any map, just like we did with the files we plugged before. Instead of plugging a file, he has less hair now. It looked like he lost hair. So you're going to click this little box, and you're going to open the options in here. And you can create a ramp. Let's do this now, actually, so I'm not thinking about talking about and not doing it. So you're just going to break connection. You see, I don't have a lot of darkness around the edges. So I'm going to click, and I'm going to add one again. So basically, the procedure is this. Go to Maya 2D Textures, and you just say ramp, right? See, the ramp like is vertical right now, so it's dark in the underneath. So if I expand this one now, you're going to see it by ramping here, right? So you're going to switch from ramp V ramp to circular. And now you see like it's dark right in the middle, right? So all you have to do here is reverse the whole thing. So just like bring this one all the way to the end, and this one to the middle. And now you can play with how far you want to go. If you want a vignette that's just like very, very well defined like that, right? You can do that. But then for the black, if you keep bringing this one up to something a little bit more grayish like that, then you can create like a perfect vignette, like with a lot of control in here as well. Obviously, like, you know, having this in post is always preferable, but just for you guys to know that there is an option in here, you can actually create a vignette inside of Arnold, you know. So just like going through that, showing you guys where to go to do that. And let's see something else here. Important as well. I mean, like I try to, as much as possible, have all my scene calibrated so I don't have to do any tweaks in here. You see I have like exposure controlling here, right? So the exposure control, you see like my whole scene is a little bit dark overall, right? If I render, it looks a little dark. And my intention here is to actually go to my lighting and calibrate the lighting, bringing it up a little bit, like in exposure, so I don't have to do this in a camera. The camera is basically just like a real camera, right? Like if you have like a DLRS, right? Basically, like he evaluates the light and tries to compensate for things. So sometimes like he exposures things correctly at the cost of more noise, right? Like so if you have like a low light scene, you're still gonna try to expose that part of the focus correctly, but then it's going to add a lot of noise because it has to compensate somehow. So the ISO is going to go higher instead of lower, right? So there's the whole correspondence in there. But in this case here, I mean, like I could use exposure. So it's rendering right now. If I crank this one to 1, it's going to look much brighter overall, right? But I would rather keep this one quiet without overexposing things here and just keeping this at 0 for the most part. And if the scene is looking a little bit too pale, then I can just go to my HDRI map and tweak it. Talking about the HDRI map, this is the one I'm using here. And this is a studio lighting. So let me just show you what it is. So you guys can download like from HDRI Haven and play with it. It's called Studio Small 2 and then 4K. So like this is basically like the same like this one here, right? And then, like I said before, I mean, like if I go here, I have an intensity that's like at, for some reason, I put like a 600, 0.6 in here, gonna bring it back to 1. So that's the correct exposure right here. I thought maybe I did this, I don't know. But I mean, like the overexposure I was talking about before, if it's looking too dim, you can actually crank the exposure down here. So you see like the light where you plug your HDRI in there, you have this control that's the intensity, which also can do the same thing, right? If you bring it down, it's gonna get like dimmer and dimmer, like that. But also you have the control, which is like a little bit more physically accurate and not so arbitrary, which is the exposure in here. So you can actually crank this on for like 0.5, for example, right? So you're gonna get things even brighter in there. So yeah, it's like the general note is that try to keep your shaders and everything pretty much neutral, you know, it's like with the lighting that you're working with, instead of like trying to compensate things too much with, you know, it's like exposure to the camera or lenses or something like that, you know. So that's kind of like what I had like in terms of the light, the settings for the camera. I thought about, so basically like, let's see, aperture, all the other stuff here, I'm keeping pretty much like vanilla. There are a couple of things in here I don't play with that much, but they're like shaders you can assign as well. So let's see if this one doesn't show in here. Actually, shaders for your lighting. So if you have something like, let's see if the HDRI has the same stuff. So if I click my small studio in there,
Chris,
yes.
you know, there's like 10 different places you can play with the exposure.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, are they all equal basically, or is there one better than the other one? Or
They try to stay kind of like a physically accurate, which is kind of, you know, that's what you need. But at the same time, yeah, in like in general lines, yes, you can play with exposure in a lot of different places. But just like in real life, I mean, like your camera has its own exposure, and each one of the lights in your studio have a different exposure control as well. So, for example, if you're setting up a portrait lens, portrait setup with lights, you can set up like the left right to have left light to have like 1 for exposure, and the one like right below have like half of that exposure, right? And then your camera on top of that, if you, for example, like use like a very low ISO, it probably is going to try to compensate for that and work together with the lighting. So if you have like for example, I have a Canon and it communicates with the flash from Canon as well. So they kind of like work together to find like the best exposure. But it's like it's a combination, right? Like the camera is going to expose in a certain way, and then the light's going to compensate in a different way. So each one of those elements have its own like exposure controls. You know, it's basically like just the same we have in here. You have exposure for the camera itself, and then we have for the lighting. You know, And then on top of that, obviously, when you're rendering here, right, then you have like the exposure right here, which is basically like just a post-processing kind of thing. It's kind of cool for like, even like to evaluate, right? Let's say if you do a render, it looks like this, and then you have to crank to something like this to make sure that it looks natural. Then you can take note of how many points you exposed it and translate that exposure to, for example, like your lighting, right? And try to get something similar. At the same time, the lighting is not like this. That's basically like, this is a post-processing filter, so it's going to expose the whole thing at the same time. The lighting has a fall off, right? Like kind of like it falls over, it's like, I don't remember what's the calculation, but every couple of inches, it kind of reduces like the intensity by half or something like that. And then, so you have to take that in account. So for example, if your light is very far from here, maybe translating this exposure here to the light itself is not going to be an exact science, because I mean, like there's the fall off kind of, how you call it. There's another name, not the fall off. It's don't remember, like when it dims over, a certain distance. But the other thing I was talking about before was like the light. So I have the lighting selected in here, and then let's go back to the lighting settings. So the samples here I'm using 3. But sometimes if you're using just an area light, it's good if you start with, I would say, like 6 or 8. Otherwise, if it's just like the whole scene is lightened, but illuminated just by one area light, if you have very low samples, you're going to get a lot of noise everywhere. So you can start with 8. Sometimes I use like 16, for that. And then those are the settings we had talked about before. Basically, like you can hide the HDRI completely by using this slider here. And at the same time, it still produces the same amount of light. And you can say like, okay, I want to cheat this. I want to use a different HDRI, which instead of like illuminating the whole thing, I just want to steal the specular from it. So you can just turn everything off and keep just the specular, for example, on like this, and maybe like a little kick, like 0.2 or something. So this HDRI from now on is not going to produce any light. It's just going to affect the specular, right? So there are lots of ways of like cheating by like using multiple HDRI maps to get like different results. But obviously, if you want something more accurate, you want to make sure that the reflection is actually, coming from the right direction, right? Like if the lighting is coming from there, I want the reflection to come from the same spot. But if it's like a very similar structure in terms of like the position of the light, the main source of light in the HDRI, you can actually mix different HDRIs that might have like some more interesting reflections, by doing that, as long as they're like in similar places. And then you have those light effects in here. I don't play too much with it, but I know that they have like this light blocker, right, that you can use. I believe like that's basically what the name is. You can actually transform a light into a blocker. So it just like eliminates the light from that specific spot. But like I said, I don't use that much. But in general lines, that's basically what I use for like lenses, camera, and then for my lighting stuff. It's like HDRIs, I don't need to go too high. I keep like 3 or 4. But then when it's just like single area lights, then I'm going to go higher, like 8 to 16 or something. I have a couple of things that I took note here. So speaking about like the DOF, the vignetting, and then close, actually. I want to talk about close, because at this point here with this guy, we are not paying too much attention to it. But I want to show you using another model, because I have a bunch here, right, that actually have close. So the first one would be this lady here. And if I show you like a close-up of her clothes, it's pretty interesting. But this was using like a node technique, right? So basically, like it looks okay. Clothes definitely need a lot of fuzz to actually give the right impression to it. But let's see if I have another one of her, like maybe like this high res here, something like that, right? So it's basically like it's a bump map that I'm using in there. And the bump map is okay, it's like, but it's not like a displacement map. So for the displacement map, what I used in here, see those little stripes in here? This is coming from displacement. But everything that's like in between was coming from bump. It works in this case, kind of works in this case, because I have a lot of fuzz disguising the whole thing, right? Same for those guys here around it. See like bump for the little threads in there. And this is like basically this it's all XGen, right? So XGen for the fuzz with a lot of noise to it. And then for those loose threads, it's just another pass with much less hair, let's say like 500 hairs overall, and just like much thicker than the rest, right? So those are like XGen as well, just look like little threads and stuff. But what I noticed is that in my latest model, instead of using bump combined with the displacement, just like we did with the face, which I told you guys how to create like a blend between the micro displacement, right, and then the displacement itself by blending the two of them and generating a single output for the displacement. I did the same for my little guy, for this little guy right here, Sammy, and it worked much better. You know, it's like visually, it looked much better. So let's see if I can get this to show. Let's see if I get like a close up of one of the latest ones I posted. Let's try this one right here. So this is actually a combination. You see, like the difference here is that this is breaking profile, right? So this is like it's actually displaced. It's not just a bump map. A bump map would look okay in here, but would not break profile. So all this stuff here looks more complex. It looks like, look at that, like there is a like a overlapping of those forms with the other forms in there, right? So this stuff here, and the same thing for this one here, instead of like just using the displacement map, I'm using like multiple, you know, a combination of multiple things in here. So we can actually open this one and look at the shader network to show you guys. But like I said before, the pitch fuzz is very important. You know, it's like that you cover things to look like it's actually made out of something. You know, it's like something soft, clothed, and in that spirit of trying to break the CG look, right? Always try to add like little threads like that, little, you know, fuzzes with different intensities or lengths. You know, break up like silhouette like this. This is all very important. I can also show you this this shader for this little button in here that's very, very translucent. Yes?
Sorry, do you have any tips for like unwrapping clothing to not get stretching when you're doing your tiling?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, yeah. So the first thing I do, I have to make sure that at all times I have like completely unwrapped, right? So don't trust anything that looks visually okay. Sometimes like visually it looks like if you apply a map, let's say like a checker, and it looks perfect, right? But then when you render, it looks a little stretched out. If you keep like unwrapping, every time you do like a major change, you unwrap it, you're good to go. I mean, like for those clothes, I don't use any. Actually, I'm using some displacement from ZBrush, which is actually introducing this little. There is a seam in here that's running right around here. There's a seam that's kind of buried in there. So it's and I have a displacement here coming from ZBrush as well. So if you do something in ZBrush, for example, make sure that when you bring it back to Maya, that you unwrap it again, and then you send it back to ZBrush. So you keep synchronized at all times. What I mean is this. Let's open the scene so I can actually see it. Let's do like a set project so we don't get in trouble here. And let's do a Sammy and then set. Let's open this guy right here. Scene. And probably now we're not going to get the same problem we got yesterday because now the scene is being pointed to the correct spot.
And you unwrap it like a pretty high resolution, right?
In this case, yes. In this case, it has to be a little higher because let me see how high it is actually. I think it's fairly high.
I was trying to work between, just figure out whether it's best to work with high or low. And when I was unwrapping with the low, and then when it does the subdivision, it doesn't really, especially with like straight line tiles.
Yes, yes.
Patterns, it looks really odd.
Yeah, I think that's the reason I was using some higher res for this stuff. You know, it's like you see right here, it's fairly high res, right? So I think you see, like I started with the displacement from ZBrush, but I wouldn't be surprised if I removed the displacement because I can see the seam in there, and I just kept the way it is. But we can look at the map itself and see how it looks like. But my mesh, you see, like it's fairly high res. It's like 383,000 polys, and then for the clothing here is about 199. So I would say, like, if you go to your UV editor, so it's gonna look like this, right? You can do little by little if you want, or like all at the same time, but it's important that you actually unwrap it all times. So let's press Control U in here. Let's see if it's gonna unwrap even further or not. It moved a little bit, but in terms of unwrap, it didn't do much. As long as you do this every time, like, you know, it's like you did a big change in ZBrush, bring it here, do the unwrapping for that specific area, right? And then as soon as you did that, just like make sure that you export this model back to ZBrush so they actually match. So next time, you know, it's like if it's just a tiny little change, you might not need to do that. If you do this, you're always going to get something that's completely even, you know, as long as you have obviously the cuts in the correct spots, right? Let's say if you try to unwrap a piece like this, which is like it's the there's the back part of it and the front part of it, without cutting things, you might get in trouble, you know. That's why I made the cuts right here at the edge to make sure that there is area for relaxation, right? So basically the UVs can relax. Otherwise they would try like to pull, you know, from all kinds of directions to accommodate for this stuff. So like the cuts, if I look here in comparison to the model, let's just select like one aisle here. Let's see, from this guy. Yeah, it can be this one. So if I double click this one, it's basically like you see it's just the top of it and not the back of it. So there's a seam right there. So I try to keep it like cut right in the seam. And same for this guy here. Let's try to click it like that. And let's see if you get, see right here. So you see the cuts. I try to cut almost like what you would have like with the actual clothes. So, you know, have like, this is the front of it. So the back of it is not selected. You see like the back in there is not selected at all. So the cut is right around here. So when I displace it, I can get like right against the edge, you know. So that's important. We have everything in a way that can breathe, you know. You could potentially just like have this one attached in there, but having a little seam in the back is not a big deal. So I just kept like that. But let's look at the shader network. Also, these little buttons, I thought it turned out pretty cool in terms of how translucent they look like. You know, it's like I thought about how to approach it if it would be like transparency with some kind of blurry refraction or something. But I think the solution was just like having a very high radius for the subsurface scattering. So let's take a look at this stuff here. So let's start with this little button. So my settings for this to get this milky kind of looking. So I have like full on reflection. So specular at 1. Roughness is fairly mirror-like, not quite, but quite shiny. The index of refraction I cranked from the regular 1.55 to something a little bit more metallic looking, so you can get that pearl kind of look to it. So it's like 1.760. If you keep cranking this, you're going to get more and more metallic, which is basically what this metalness does right here. So if you click, if you do it like, if you want to do like a quick metal, you just crank this all the way, you're going to get something very chromy looking. But sometimes it ends up like that it's not exactly what you want and you don't have a lot of control because this one overrides a lot of stuff. Then you can keep the like metalness down to 0 and then just play with index of refraction by going really, really strong values, like let's say like 10, 15, 20, you know, and you can get like a pretty much like a super strong metal. Transmission, I'm not using anything for transparency, so I put that aside. But the subsurface scattering here, instead of like the regular skin that we use like 1 to 1.3, 0.1 to 0.130, I'm actually using like 8 times that, so 873. For the radius here, I'm using a color like this. That based like if you're using ACES D60, right? That's basically what you're gonna get around here. So those are the numbers: 38, 0.39, and then 0.34. And then for the subsurface color, it's kind of like it's a desaturated version of that, like 39, 0.098, and 0.587. And that's about it, you know, it's like, so just that. Oh, there's a little bit of coat as well. So there's a little coat, so 0.144, and then index of refraction, another 1.5. So it's pretty cool, you know, it's like you can get this really kind of like looks a little bit like pearl, right? You can get a little kind of look like a pearl like that. And then for the threads, it's basically like I made like a little, how you say, like a torus, very, very thin torus, multiplied a couple of times, put them together, you know, it's like close together, brought to ZBrush, resculpted them just to look a little bit more that, like flatter at the top and stuff. And, you know, assigned like a very plain kind of shader. I think it's the same shader as assigned for the shirt, just without the displacement. It's kind of like a copy of that. So it's basically the same color. Simple stuff. But now let's take a look at the shaders I have for those guys. So clothes are, I mean, like we don't talk about like sculpting, but people normally ask about like the shaders, you know, so it's cool to just show it. It's never complicated. I mean, like even my the most complex skin shader I ever made doesn't compare to a lot of skin shaders you see people demonstrating sometimes in videos and stuff. They open up like there's a ton of nodes, right? My nodes, like, I don't know, like 20 of them maximum, like 10 to 20, I don't remember. But this one, for example, is just like displacement, and then that's it, right? Just a displacement map, nothing else. So the displacement I'm using here, it's a node that comes from Maya, actually. It's called Cloth. You can find it right here. If you go to Maya, 2D textures, see there's a cloth in there. So this is a procedural, right? It's cool because you have access to a bunch of things. Like you have this wave, and you have like the randomness as well. So that means that the little thread that you see, let's see, can we do a little render? Maybe just that. Let's see. Let's get something like this. Let's get those 3 pieces and some lighting so we can actually just investigate this. So let's see, something like that. It should render kind of fast. Let's try to do, yeah, the resolution is good. 1, 2, oops, not 32, 2, 3, 4. Then let's do like 8 in here. So we can actually see this rendered, not in real time, but fast enough. Let's bring this one to the side. And then let's see, is this the render? Nope. Let's get the Arnold render view. All right, let's try that. This one is rendering actually sRGB. It wasn't set to the P3D60 at that point, and I switched like in this last project, which I think was actually pretty good. I'm really liking I'm digging the look of this latest character. You know, it's like, I think there's something about this ACES setting that I really like. It's not super saturated. It has a little bit more of this pale kind of look to it. Let's see, it's calculating there. Just want to show you guys. So let's see. Oh, it's supposed to take this long. Okay, seems like it's calculating. All right, there you go. So let's get something like this, like a little piece like that. So the thing is, like, now, since this is not a bump map, what's going to happen here, let me make sure I have my progressive on as well. There we go. What's going to happen is that let's get closer, right? Closer, otherwise you're not going to be able to see that. So look how cool this is, right? It's breaking up the profile in there because it's actual displacement now instead of like silliness of bump maps, right? That's why we're going like full on skin and clothes, everything as basically like with displacement, right? Because it's the real deal. So if I look at my shader networking here, let's put this one aside. It's hard to fit everything in a single screen when you have just 1080p. We get spoiled, right? Like a couple of years ago, we had like monitors working with Windows 486, right? I had a Windows 486 PC DX4 66 megahertz. And my monitor was like 800 by 600. It was like one of the high res ones. And I remember when I got one, it was like 1024 by 768. It was like, oh man, that's super VGA or something, right? I was so happy. And now I'm complaining about 1080p because we are spoiled with 4Ks. But that's how it goes, right? We're never happy. So right now we see like the pattern itself, like from the cloth. What is this? Is doing like a autosave again? Sorry, guys. I don't have to have autosave for this scene here. Actually, I can turn it off, but now it's too late already saving things in there. I hope it doesn't crash. No, there you go. So for the clothing here, basically, by default, it has different settings. So you can copy those settings if you want to create something like this. So it's like I'm using 1 for the U and V width. For the wave, I'm actually increasing a little bit. If I increase much more in here, let's see what happens. So let's save this one, store snapshot. So we have like a comparison. So if I crank this wave in here, it's going to have to recalculate the displacement now because it's not just bump, right? It has to go through the pipe and then calculate the displacement for this entire thing. So it takes longer. And then the randomness are going to increase by a lot here too as well. So you can see in a single pass how much this is going to change. So basically, the pattern itself, it looks pretty much like super simple at the beginning. It looks like a perfect pattern. But then if you keep like playing with those numbers, you can get a lot of randomness. So look, from this to this, right? There's a lot of randomness added to it. So this is a very useful thing for clothing. I use the same one for the tie. You can see right there, right? It's the same pattern, just a little bit more even, because this is kind of like more like a let's say like this one looks more like cotton, right? So it's kind of like a little bit softer and stuff. This one is more like machine made and maybe like nylon. So it tends to have a little bit more of an even pattern and stuff. So, you know, every time you're building something, you try to think about how those materials actually behave in real life. You know, it's like, so you can actually come up with concepts about like, okay, they are made out of this material. So maybe it's going to be easier to tear them apart. You know, it's like if it's cotton in comparison to something that's not nylon, you know, it's like it should be more synthetic. So, you know, it's like you can come up with all kinds of little tweaks here and there. But if I eliminate this completely, look how boring it's going to look if I eliminate all those passes. Oh, something got baked in there. I don't think this is actually, I think I would have to do like a update full scene in here, because it kind of like got stuck. Sometimes that happens, you know, it's like gets stuck with some setting like you did in the past in there, and then it doesn't refresh correctly, especially if you're doing this all in like render time like this. So I think that's what it is. Let's see if it's going to change once it refreshes in here. That's the thing that's tricky, you know, it's like sometimes you're rendering something and you know that subsurface gathering is supposed to be looking correct, but then all of a sudden it looks like there's some light leaking from somewhere, and then the model looks kind of like a self-illuminated or something. And then you're just like, man, but I had this correct before. What's going on in here? See, like I just refreshed and all of a sudden it's fixed, right? So it's the same deal, you know. It's like sometimes Arnold goes crazy with not able to keep up with the settings you're changing here, and then he goes a little crazy right there. So all you have to do is go to render, update full scene, and then all of a sudden everything's fixed. You know, if after doing this things are not fixed, then it might be a problem of you having textures being auto-generated in TX mode. That's why I turn those settings off at all times. But just to show you guys, you know, it's like those settings here, you can create something that's very evenly distributed like that, like a pattern that's very even, or something that's more random, you know. So for this, in this case here, I don't have like a texture assigned to it. The only thing I have in this is just a cloth assigned as a displacement map. The trick here is to actually multiply it a ton of times, right? Because the cloth itself is just like 3x3 pattern in there. So you don't have enough to create like a whole setting in there, like for the whole thing. So all you have to do, you go to your UV coordinates in here under the cloth node. So UV coordinates, you click this little guy here. You're probably gonna have a little, oh, this one actually is automatic. So just click this guy here. And I actually made it's multiplying like it's a 1,000 by 1,000 multiplier, right? What's gonna happen if I change this to 500 by 500? Well, it's gonna be twice as big, right? The pattern. So basically like this one is the one you have to actually find out by looking at the references, you know, it's like in trying to find what's a good number. You see, like it's not multiplying. Again, like it's probably because of the same bullshit. So I'm gonna have to do like an update full scene here. I thought he would be smarter about that, but apparently it's not. And then let's see. So yeah, this is all I have for this guy right here for the shirt. So no texture whatsoever. It's basically just displacement, you know. And then obviously, if you want to complicate things a little bit, you can actually use two displacements. The first one is to actually create the seams and everything. Like let's say you want to do like some stitches and stuff. And then you can mix it together, just like if you can go back to the class the lesson we talked about the skin and see what are the nodes I'm actually using to multiply things. But you see, just like by updating the scene, now it's actually reflecting the 100 by 100, right? If I go back to 1,000 by 1,000, it's probably not going to update because it's silly. Look, you updated just one side. Let's try again. You updated 100. So bizarre, man. I put like 100. Okay, so let's try 1,000. So it goes. Let's try this one, 1,000. Oh, 10,000. No, that's not it. 1,000. It doesn't do it. But if I go to the refresh and here update, it's probably gonna do correctly. So it's a little bizarre, you know. But yeah, like in general lines, that's basically what I use for those guys. Let's see if there is anything different about this one. This one is a little metallic, right? If you look at the render, it has this metallic look to it. So for the metallic look, let's look at the shader in here. So the tie. So I'm using like a, let's see, starting from the top here. This one I'm using the metalness. So it's like 0.9. Whatever color you want to use, I'm using this one here for the tie based on the reference I found. Instead of like 0.8 for the diffuse, I'm using 0.457. And then for the specular, full-on specular, because I have plenty of bumpness in there, so it kind of breaks up and doesn't look that specky. I'm actually coloring the speck as well to something a little bit more like a bluish magenta or something. Roughness, very rough, so 0.5. Index of refraction, very high. So that basically like is bringing things to look much more metallic, right? What I'm saying is that I was talking about before. I think this one I don't need to refresh anything. But if I select just this little piece here, and I bring this one, for example, from 7 to the regular 1.5 that is suggested, right? 1.5. It's going to look different. And then if I bring the metalness down, look at that. It looks very boring, right? So for example, just by bringing this to 7, it looks much more metallic, right? So you're going to get some nice reflections that are much more metallic from that to that, right? And then you can get this metalness to actually increase like the contrast and make things darker, right? To kind of like make things darker like that. So a combination of both in this case here to create that effect, you know. And then for the, let's see, for the subsurface, I'm using a little bit of subsurface in this one, not much. So it's actually 20% subsurface, and then 80% is coming from the base, because that's basically the difference. If you're using 0.2 in here, that means 0.8 is coming from this channel right here. And then same color that I'm using for the reflection, everything is the same color for both the subsurface and the radius. And then for the scale is very low. I don't want something super subsurface scattery, right? If you go too high, it's gonna get very scattery. So I'm just like using a very, very low number in here. So it's almost like no scatter, just very subtle, 0.60 or something. For coat, I'm not using anything. And then let's see if we have any bump map. I'm using a bump map in here. So this is a combination. I'm actually using a bump map and a displacement map. So I think the bump map I'm using just for the super small stuff like that, right? I could have done in a different way, for example, combining 2 displacement maps, like I said before. But in this case, I still use a bump map in there. And then let's say if I go to my settings in here, let's see how that looks like. If I grab this, let's just stop this render for now. Let's see this. So this one I have the bump map plugged into here. So like it's the cloth, right? This one has a ton of, it's like 800 repetitions, like for the UV. And then if I go back the top in here, that's gonna have the displacement plugged as well. And I have this bulge in here. So bulge is another one that's basically like this node right here. So instead of like just cloth, I'm using this bulge. That's basically to create this little bigger squares. So you see like those bigger squares in here, it's coming from this bulge. You also have some more parameters in here. This is basically like the width of it. And then you still have like the UV coordinates. So that one is repeating 350 times. And the other one, like the small one, is repeating 800 times. So it's a combination of both. So like the bulge creates the big squares, and the bump is actually creating just the tiny stuff, which is cool, right? Because it's so tiny that you don't need it to break profile. But at the same time, you want it to break profile if you're rendering something like this, right? Like you want to see these little bulges in there. So that's basically coming from the displacement. But the super tiny stuff is just bump in that case. So combination of both. So that's basically it, you know, guys. Other than that, it's just like a ton of peach fuzz. I mean, like all that stuff is like a ton of it. And then if you look at the way I have set up here, it's just like I have everything named. So for example, I have like the shirt threads. So you see like those are the thick ones, just a few of them like that. And you see that they have a little twist. If you look closely, they have a little twist like that. So I'm probably using like something here to help with that. Let's see, what is that? I think it's just a curve, the curve of the noise. So I'm basically like modeling those guys to look like a little twist like that. So let me show you. So let's see. Is that what I'm doing here? Sculpt. I thought I had the curve like changed. Why is it not showing? Huh, that's weird. You know what this might be? It might be that I baked that before. Sometimes you can actually, if you export this and bring it back, you can actually bake things, and so it's gone. But what I probably did with that was like, if I have a noise assigned to it like this, I would just go to the curve in here, and I would just do like spline, and then spline. I can show you like in real time. So you see the pattern in there. Look what's gonna happen. So this. Oh, actually, this is the thickness. Huh. That's actually, this is the curvature of the, yeah, I don't remember where I did this. I think it was with maybe with the clump, something like that. I changed the profile of each one of the hairs, but I don't remember which one was that. Maybe the scale. What's the scale? I don't remember right now. But yeah, I have to find out. But I remember like doing this little, it's almost like a little twist, but it's actually just changing the pattern of it. Yeah, gonna have to find out. So this is the shirt threads. So if I hide it, I have like let's see, the shirt fuzz. So this is like a ton of fuzz. Actually, this is the velus hair. Shirt fuzz, let's see, shirt fuzz, this one. So a lot of fuzz like this, very thin. Again, like the only way to know is when you render it. And by default, it looks very, very, it looked originally very thick. So I went like down, down, down until you got something like that. So it's a combination. So I have the shirt fuzz, I have like the tie fuzz. So this one has some stuff like that. Same thing, I mean, like I would finish the material of the main thing, duplicate it, remove the displacement and bump maps, and just assign basically the same material, so it actually matches. And then like suit dust. So I have dust in here. So check this out. In some areas, I'm not going to be able to see it. Let's try to see like this. It's like those little guys. It's just little dust pieces. I changed the profile of each one of them to look a little bit thicker. So let's see if I can see anything here. So I have the scale. Oh, there you go. That's what it is right there. It's this, the width ramp, right? So this one is coming from the shape itself. So that's what it is. So basically, like I have my width scale right there. So let's see. So the scale, noise, sculpt, and then the base. Where is that one coming from again? From the shape itself, huh? So I actually play with the width ramp, not the noise. I was tripping before. And I made this kind of pattern like this, which makes like, instead of like having something that has a very simple pattern, that's the spot that I told you guys you can actually create a feather, for example, by changing this pattern. So imagine like this is like the halfway. So basically like the other side is going to look like a mirror version of this down here. So that's basically the pattern for each one of those little guys, So I think that's what I did with let's just investigate since we are here. For the shirt fuzz, for the shirt threads, right? Shirt threads, this one. So let's see. Yeah, there you go. So it's within the ramp actually. So for the shirt threads, I actually went to each one of those. Let's get to shading. Oops. Default material, no. This one. So let's take a look to, oh, sorry. So right here, for example, like the little pattern I said that looks a little funky like that. It's basically this. So basically like you can actually move stuff around. Look at that, it's changing, right? You're like poking around like that. We can make things like to look a little bit more, less even, right? Sometimes like actual hair happens like this. I mean, like when the hair is about to break, it gets like those little strangled little pieces. So it's basically like under the shape for your model. You have like your width scale, the taper and all this stuff, and you have the width ramp. So here you can actually shape things, It's like, let's do like the little feather test that I mentioned before. For example, if you want to create a little bit of a feather shape, let's just delete all those guys here, for example. Just do a little quick demo here for you to see. Those things, man, like those curves in XGen, they're so powerful. You can reshape all kinds of stuff, It's you just have to be really curious about how those things work. So I'm gonna bring like the bottom here a little bit thick, and I'm gonna bring this one higher like that. I can go much higher, for example, than the number here. Let's try like 5. something like that. Oh, there you go. Now I put way too much in there, but you see, like you can come up like and make like some hair to look like feathers and stuff just by doing that. But I mean, like I'm kind of like gonna have to do kind of manually like this a little bit. Maybe like just do a few of them, and then this one I'm gonna crank to something like 3, and now this one maybe something like 5. You know, so you can have like a pattern like this. So I think like for the dust, what I did was something similar, but just like making sure that it was very round overall, you know. And the thing is, like, you don't have to go actually crank all the way up like that. I just remember that you can just do this. Check this out, even simpler. So you just do a little bit of that, what I just did, something like that. And then you can come up with the scale itself and just like crank it. So you can reshape all kinds of stuff, you know, with this way, just like having like a different types of curves in here. I mean, like that stuff that we were doing before, like introducing like weirdness to it like that. You can create like, you know, it's like the dust that I created for the shirt was kind of like this. It was like kind of like a abstract little shapes, and they just add this little touch, you know. It's like, so if you look at his suit in here, you see like those little dust pieces. They look kind of like round and stuff. So yeah, that's basically what I did in there. So always like in the spirit of trying to incorporate things that break the CG look, you know. It's like it's very, very important. So yeah, so that's basically what I had in there. So the things that I thought about talking about today was so the render settings, all this stuff, doing the little you know, grooming around the mouth, and then talking about the clothing. But I also took a note in here. It's kind of like a generic kind of note, which is like the main keys to realism, I believe. You know, this is kind of like discussion that goes like back and forth all the time in terms of like you know, it's like things looking realistic or not, right? I tend to talk to my students about like the stuff I make not being realistic, no, not realistic, not real. They don't look real, but they look realistic enough, and I would say like convincing if I do it right. But I mean, like there is no way to expect something more than this if you're basically sculpting everything and painting everything by hand, right? I mean, like, we're not gods, right? So all you can hope is that something looks realistic and convincing at the end, you know. I would say like the things that I think about, like the realism, shaders are very important. Having like the impression that the material you're looking at is actually made out of the material you're you know, familiar with since you're born, basically. Like look at someone's face or something, right? When I look at something like this still bothers me right here. It looks very plain. I can use like much more color variation. This is not much more than what we did during the class in terms of detail, right? So I have plenty of room to introduce more spots and stuff like that. Like in the case of Stan Winston, you know, it's like I had like much more successfully added all those spots and stuff. I was more careful with that. So I'm going to introduce more spots, like more breakups in the skin, more little tags and stuff. And also the specular levels have to be correctly controlled. In this case, I'm going to remove some from the tip of the nose, going to remove some of them from here as well. But the shader is very important. So that part I kind of actually cut like a huge amount of, you know, it's like poking around for you by giving you the settings that I'm using, you know. So if you do it like following the stuff that I was talking about during all those classes, you should be able to get like a fairly realistic shader. But remember that the shader is going to be as good as your texture painting abilities, right? So if you do like a shader that looks exactly like mine, you copy like parameter by parameter, everything from my shader network, but then you paint it super strongly orange, right? Like the skin color is orange. You're never going to get the result like this, right? Remember what I said about using like a color corrective node for the skin, so it can actually desaturate things, introduce a little bit more blue to the entire thing, right? So you break up the, you know, that impression that everything looks a little bit too orange and too warm, because a lot of that look comes from the subsurface scattering itself. So it's almost like when you paint the texture, it's almost like you have to imagine like being paler than they would be in real life, just because when it's mixed with the subsurface scattering, it's going to get warmer naturally, right? So very important, like the color of the skin is important. The number of variations is important. The shaders are important in terms of getting the right amount of reflection and you know, it's like, for example, the eyes, right? Like getting the amount of reflection you want. By the way, like the eyes, I gave you guys, I think the setting was like reflection, I think was like 0.6. For this guy, I ended up like cranking to 0.7, but I never go like to 1, for example, for full reflection for the eyes, because I always think that it looks so hot. You know, it's like when you render something, it looks like, man, nobody has like, I don't see that hot, you know, unless you have a lighting like this, which is just like a flashlight, then it's going to get hot. You're going to get very white. But let's say like if someone is looking towards the horizon with the sunset in there, right? You're not going to get like a full blown like reflection in there. You're going to get a little bit dimmer than that. So that's why I use like 0.6, 0.7 for reflection. I still have to paint the stuff in there, like paint, you know, it's like remove some of the veins in there, make things a little bit paler, pinkier, right? So eyes, very important. The eye direction is very important, right? Like remember what I said. The eyes never, they don't look like they are straight ever, right? Like it's not like a 90-degree ever. You point 90 degrees forward, but then you actually rotate each one of them outwards about 3 degrees. And then you make sure that they are setting within the structure of the orbital and within the eyelids slightly higher, right? So basically like they are slightly rotated out, and the middle part of the eyeball is not like right here where the caruncula in the corner of the eye is, right? They're normally like the eyeball is sitting a little bit above. It goes a little bit higher because remember, like from the profile, what we want to do, you want to have something that looks like this, right? Like you have like a little bit more eyelid at the top, so it's more, you know, forward than the lower one. You cannot achieve that if the eyeball is sitting right in the middle, because if it's sitting right in the middle, it's going to push the lower eyelid forward and it's going to bring this one back because of the lack of volume in there. So having it like slightly up like that is very important. Having rotated out is very important. Also, you see like the eyeball itself, when we were talking about this in class, the eyeball, if I do like a transparency in here to see how it looks like, it's basically like the eyelid is an offset of it, right? So a common mistake is to have this eyelid in here flat. So like completely flat like this, or even like negative like this, right? Instead of having like this very deep fold in there that's enclosure in the whole thing, it's kind of like, you know, it's like it looks the reverse of this. You need to have this curve in here, this line, because that means that this is actually wrapping around the eyeball and it's going to look convincing when you have actually have this render, you know? So basically like you have to make sure that it looks like this is actually covered for the eyeball. The eyeball is creating the pressure to generate like this kind of like a slightly bulgy kind of area. Same for the lower eyelids. You're going to have the same thing. This one obviously going to have some secondary forms in here. So for example, like the lower part of the eye bag in here is going to have its own volume. So it's not like you can dig this all the way deep like I have in the top. You're going to dig a little bit in here, and that form is going to start mixing with the lower form as well. And then all of a sudden you're not going to have like a super deep crease in here, right? But you still have a little bit of that because you want the observer to be tricked, right? Like it's almost like you're so used to see like an eyeball moving inside of the eye socket, and you know that all those structures here they're gonna rotate with the eyeball in a kind of like a sticky way, right? So you're used to see those deformations, and you know there's a crease that's created in here. If you look like all the way down, for example, there's a crease going to be created. If you look all the way up, there's going to be a stretch, and the bigger crease is going to be created there. So we are used to this. We are specialists in humans, you know, it's like since we are like babies. So you have to add those little hits, you know, it's like for the eye, for the observer to be tricked, you know, it's like it has to look like something that has some mechanical function to it, you know. Simply just like putting a little line in here, like just like sculpting a little wrinkle doesn't do the trick. You actually have to dig a little bit deeper to create that very subtle impression that this is actually a volume that's on top of that other volume. And this volume is actually being pressed by this volume here. It's creating a bulge, you know. So everything has to have a function, you know. It's like things have to look like they are functional. For the
Chris, sir?
yes.
Sorry, regarding the lower eyelid, the like now you were explaining, I have quite some trouble sculpting that area in most of my models. I just wanted to know how you define it. Like the upper eyelid we can make out, but the lower one you said there has to be a little bit of compression, and then again there are like multiple forms there. So how do you identify? Because on the same model, if I'm seeing images from different angles, it kind of seems like sometimes it's on the upper side, sometimes it's kind of dug deep. So how do you like is there any like general thing to identify it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, like it's going to depend a lot of the age as well, right? I mean, like in his case here, I mean, like as you get older, this secondary volume here is going to start getting a little bit bigger, right? So if this guy was much younger, probably this whole bag here would go away, and I would still have this first one here, this primary one, right? So we'd have like basically like there are three forms in here. I have one that goes right below the edge in here, so that's a tiny one. And have the secondary one here that actually creates this little bulge that conforms to the eyeball itself. So basically, like this is just like an echo of the eyeball itself. It's almost like you try to identify like the upper eyelid in the secondary form here as the lower eyelid. But this one is just like kind of like an additional form, which is like caused by sagginess, fat deposits, whatever it is, you know. So that's like, but in terms of like how much you dig it, I would say like, so if I look at the top one here, it goes in quite a bit, right? It goes all the way in. But this lower one here, I'm actually have to stop it. I cannot like carve too deep because I have to make sure that this form here actually starts another form right below it. So there's a little bit of a tension here. And I was like, so they kind of blend together. But again, like for a younger person, I would probably have room to actually keep this one a little bit deeper around here, just like from the profile. Imagine this profile without this extra bulge in the bottom here. That would look like someone younger, you know.
So does it follow all the way through, like the roundity of it? It follows all the way, or should we blend it like when it goes towards the tip of the eye?
That's another good question. I mean, like I noticed that sometimes you're going to get some references that they look like, for example, like if there is a squint, right? So the squint is going to happen kind of like you're going to have something a little bit flatter like this. And this whole area compresses towards the center in here. So in that case, it looks like you're going to have some kind of like a flatness to the whole thing. And then sometimes you're going to find some other people that like this area right here, it looks like it's a little bit more extreme than what I have. It's almost like looks like the wrinkle starts around there. But there's a difference between the wrinkle itself being in the wrong spot or like in a different spot and the bulge being in a different spot, because the bulge basically has to conform to the eyeball at all times, right? So it has to look like there's some compression being made by the whatever is underneath it. So if the eyeball is in there, so you see like this circle in here is going here, although like the wrinkle is in there, it goes a little bit further. So basically like there is a little bit of a bulge happening all the way across. And then with the top one, this one actually, I don't know what I did in there, but I don't know if this is the old eye or something, but this was supposed to be a little bit more like this. I have to check what's happening there. Maybe like the eyes I have in Maya, they are different from this one here. Yeah, because it looks like the Maya had like a perfect match in there. Let's take a look actually. Oh, I'm gonna have to reopen that scene. Oh yeah, I take a look later. Don't want to waste too much time, but I think like I have a better match in Maya. Maybe because I brought the eyes back slightly and I forgot to bring those eyes back in here in ZBrush, you know. But let's see, maybe like if I just click those guys and then I bring them back, let's say slightly like this. Yeah, probably that's what happened. I brought them back. You see like I have modeled in here the little gap in there because I wanted to have like a match for the sclera, not the sclera, the cornea, right? In this case, here's a little bit offset, so it's not a perfect match, but later I'm gonna adjust this because I moved this model so much because I wanna make sure that there is the match in there, because if you have an intersection you're trying to render from below, that's gonna cause a problem in there. So having a perfect match is always better. Another thing I forgot to mention, and I mentioned this in previous classes, is that I tend to sculpt a little line right against the eyeball using the clay buildup. So basically, like I go with the clay buildup in HD actually, and I go around this whole area here. oh, actually I'm modeling this guy. Okay, I go around this entire area here and I build a little like wall right against the eye like that. And then I go and I smooth it out just to have kind of like an extra step. And this actually, it gets very thin. And then when you displace the whole thing, it looks like there is an extra little wall, so a little extra step in there. And this area here in the map itself, you can paint like fairly pale. It helps to blend with the eye, with the sclera very well, you know. The reason why I didn't do it in this case here is because I built that sharpness within the model originally. It's actually because I changed this model, I did the projection from another model and everything, it's not there anymore. But originally I put like some of those edges really close to each other right at the edge right here to create that sharpness. You can see it right there. I just have to bring it, you know, higher again and make sure that this actually is going to blend with the eyeball. You know, it's like bring this little area a little bit higher to create that little blending. And at the end, when you have those guys, you can add like a very pale around this area, colored, and then add some micro veins just around, you know, it's like those areas, just to get a little bit more veins around here, like with some like desaturated colors as well. But back in here, I mean, like in terms of the keys, like to, you know, to look like realistic, I would say like so the eyes, position, rotation, and shader, very important. Those are the windows of the soul. This is like what's going to draw the attention. Anyone looking at your work is going to start around here, and then from here, people are going to start looking around it. Right? It's very unconscious. Like they look at the eyes, look around it, and then those areas around the eyes have to look consistent. So like, again, like you're gonna have to make it in a way that those wrinkles, they look like they make sense. You know, it's like, again, we are used to see how the eye moves and where the wrinkles are. So having those wrinkles in the correct spots, very important. And then from this to other spots, I mean, like everything starts in here and then propagates. So trying to bring the same kind of level of realism down, I would have to actually tweak like those, you know, pores, make some of them a little bit different because it looks a little bit mechanical right now. And then in this render here, it was very, very dense stubble. So I actually reduced this by half, and now we are adding that little blending in there. Another key to realism to me is like, which is not the case just yet here with the hair, but is in a good spot in terms of just adding enough variation. You know, it's like you're gonna see some beautiful portraits out there, man. And the only thing that doesn't look realistic at all is the hair, because it looks like everything is super plain, not enough modifiers, you know. So add modifiers, lots of noise, unless you have an area like this, like the eyebrow, that you need like more control, things a little bit straighter, right? Other areas, man, depending on the type of hair, I mean, like, don't be shy with the amount of noise you're going to be using, you know. It's like, it's just like, it's so important. And then the other thing is going to be like the subtlety of the forms. And this is a very subjective kind of thing, right? Because it's like, how can you define how subtle the form is, right? I would say like every time you render, try to render like with as many like HDRI maps as you can. Like I do have like for my scene, I'm going to end up like opening the scene again. I have about like 10 or 12 of them. And I can show you like exactly the ones I used for those renders I did of him. So maybe you don't need to spend too much time searching for them. Those are some of my favorite ones. Let's see. Oh, okay. So did I set the project? No, I'm just setting here, right? Okay. What? Velasquez, this one. This one, set project. And then let's open this one. And then, yeah, let's talk about the subtle stuff. So basically what I mean by subtle, I mean like we have this tendency of like stylizing things too much, right? You see like how I started this model here. You can look back at like the videos. It looked very stylized because we were trying to find like landmarks, right? So we were trying to force our eyes to understand like some landmarks. So I would, for example, sculpt like those edges very, very sharp at first. The zygomatic would be like much stronger than what I have right now. Everything was very angular and kind of like stylized in a way to try to discover those forms, you know. It's almost like when you're trying to do a caricature, right? And you're looking for these very strong forms and everything. So we tend to represent them very strongly. But as you refine, it's like as you render more and more stuff, the lighting starts to teach you what should be more or less evident, right? So once you do this, like with a bunch of different lighting setups, you're gonna start looking at, okay, the zygomatic I had before is casting a lot of shadow, and I don't like that. So you go back to ZBrush, remove some of that volume, right? Test it again. It was like, okay, it's starting to look more realistic now. And then over time, by doing this exercise back and forth, you train yourself to sculpt things with a certain intensity that's more natural looking, So naturalism comes from like those secondary forms playing together with the primary forms and serving as a glue between the primary and the tertiary forms, right? So it's mostly in the secondary forms. So that means like when I look from a distance like that, you see like I have this bigger fold in here. I have some kind of like irregularities in the skin, it's like the surface in there around here. I can see from a distance. I have like the bridge of the nose and the bone in here structure. I can see from a distance as well. I can see the eye bags clearly split like between this bigger one and the smaller one, right? All those things I should be able to identify. The zygomatic bone right here, and there's this extra wrinkle right here going towards the jowls in here, right? So all those things I can identify from a certain distance right there. It's not gonna fall apart, It's like, because sometimes you see something from close up, it's like, oh man, look at that juicy detail. And you zoom out, it's like, and things just fall apart. So it's very important, like, to pay attention to the secondary forms. And again, like, I use this carve brush, my trusty one, with intensity of like 2, for example. And then I just go like over and over those bigger forms. If I needed to do something about here, for example, right? I would just like, I'm gonna do very strongly here. See my zygomatic bone right now, how much I'm defining it, just cutting over it. It's because I'm doing like over and over the same spot. But if I do just like once like that, just like very subtle, move to another spot like here. Oh, sorry, I'm just using like the positive version. So right here, I'm gonna carve a little bit in here. So, it's like with a big brush from a distance like that, you can actually do this and incorporate more interesting areas in the model. It's like sometimes I see this happening, it's like people do a lot of detail work, but then there's not enough transition, it's like, it's just like it goes from primary form to tertiary form without having like some more interesting in-betweens, it's like those bigger forms like this. And this is basically like the glue. And I think like for realism and naturalism, the secondary form is going to play a huge role, So make sure you have enough of this. I mean, like even here in those wrinkles in the forehead, you see like very subtle little tweaks here and there, just to add a little bit more of like, even like this guy, if I want to make him a little bit more tense, right? Get, deeper with this guy here, right? I can just do like in a subtle way like that with a bigger brush, See, I'm not even caring about like obliterating any of the forms because I'm going so subtle with it. And on top of that, I'm outside of HD. So if I go HD, I'm still gonna see the small forms in there. And talking about HD, check this out. I installed yesterday the new ZBrush 2021-5, and now it solved the problem of the preview. It was breaking the preview before. So if I press A outside of the model, it's gonna preview my HD without showing those artifacts that we are having before. So check this out. You would show like some squares, some weirdness before. Now it's nice again. So Ofer was very proud. Like when he called me, I had a conference call with Ofer and the guys from Pixelogic, and he was showing me this in real time. Can you test it? They sent me a version. I was testing it. And I was like, oh man, this is working now. That's great. So yeah, they fixed that. Thank God. I complained about it. Like that was like a month and a half ago or so. But they are so busy with the new version and they didn't have the time. But they still fixed it, and on time for this new version. So if you download it, this is fixed in the new download. Thanks to me. You're welcome. Anyway, so important, like the secondary forms and stuff. For secondary forms, obviously, my favorite tool is to use the clay buildup. And it's not even the clay buildup with a round brush, alpha. It's the square one, like the very sketchy one that we talk about, just to start those forms. That's why when I did all those videos, like the very first like sketch that we did in the first day of class, right? Remember, I did everything was like this because I like the feel of it, like kind of like clay, and then I just smooth it out and then get all those forms. But just like the way that they play with each other, it's like if I have a form that's against each other, for example, like if I'm sketching initially this whole thing here, I build this form in here, and then the next one next to it, it kind of like the clay buildup respects it, so it kind of like stops around there. It creates a little crease right in between them. So I love to do that, it's like, so like a negative version here. And sometimes if it's a major form, if you're sculpting, you start with a bigger brush like this, just like bigger, it's like longer shapes. And then you go over it with this kind of like the opposite direction with this slightly smaller shape. And you can actually blend the two of them. So you have like a major form like that represented. And then, it's like just blend it and make it a little bit more, add some more volume in there. So I love that kind of stuff, it's like just to create this kind of like more naturalistic looking by just going like over each one of those spots where I have those forms and try to actually incorporate them in a way that it actually looks like they're interacting with each other. It's like just by doing that, you see right there, right? That's the like very, it starts to get more organic. I did this this thing here. Let's see, which one was that? Yeah, let's do like I show you guys this before, but I mean the Hitchcock is a good example because it was a two-night sketch, right? And he has this feel of fleshiness to it. That's basically like it's super simple sketch, doesn't have super fine detail or anything. It's mostly just like playing with those forms, it's like sketching, for example, like this area right here, and then it's starting another one with the clay build up on the side, and then building up this other bulge, and then the other one, and then start to blend things together, it's like in trying to create like some naturalistic forms overall, it's like to look like it's soft. And then I did this little gagging here that's kind of melting in there. But yeah, it's just like capturing this type of, there's some subtlety in there as well, like the way that the eyelids are bending in there. But it's one of my favorite exercises, it's like once I take a break from those classes, instead of like doing like spending a whole month to create a character, I might go and do something like this again, it's like do like one sketch every couple of nights, and then at the end of the month you have like a bunch of them. So this is a good exercise to just train your eye like to naturalistic forms, so I recommend doing something like that instead of like going full on hyper focus on the super fine detail stuff, to kind of like go back to the basics and explore more of the secondary forms, like they're so important. So yeah, like in terms of my things, in terms of realism, it's basically it, right? So like naturalistic forms, that means lots of love to the secondary forms, lots of love like to the shaders of the character, obviously, eye position and rotation, very important, hair with a ton of variation, cloth like with displacement and lots of fuzz, right? And those are some of like my favorite things in terms of like realistic tips I can give you, right? And the other one is the intention, right? Like, so for example, this guy here, as long as you do the rotation for the eyes, like the 3 degrees out, automatically it looks like this person is wondering about something. You introduce some thought into the person. Imagine that if he had like his eyes 90 degrees forward, it's basically it would be a similar rotation than you looking to something really close to you, right? So basically like you would be focusing on something that's like, let's say like a few feet away from you, right? It would have like almost like a crossed eye kind of looking. But if you look very far, your eyes tend to do like kind of diverge, it's like they kind of tend to open up a little bit. So every time you sculpt a character, you model a character like this, if you add this rotation to the eyes, it automatically looks like it's wondering about something, right? So if you do like renders like from an angle like this, the angle is kind of cool, right? Like it's almost like a photography kind of exercise as well. You have to think about like cool angles, it's like I like doing angles like low angles like this, just to show off stuff. Like the model is much better than this now, but this one is kind of cool to just show this thing about wandering as well, right? Like kind of looking towards the distance. And then like a front view, a side view, important, right? Like to check volumes and stuff. A 3/4 view, very important to check volumes as well. And then I didn't do any like too many of those like upper views like that, right? But sometimes I do like some from all the way from the top. I think I did like, let's see, from the Giger model. I have so many models, man. They are all unfinished. It's amazing. It's amazing. I cannot finish anything. So the Giger model, you had like a shot like this, for example, right? Kind of like from the top. And this is a kind of cool one for him because he has this very specific weird forms like in his forehead, like the way that his forehead was shaped. So this was kind of a cool one to have. And it's like one of the models I want to go and back and finish, you know. I remember adding a lot of work to it, but I never finished it. Like the eyes look a little bit small in there. I have to go back to it and do some more work. It deserves it. Yeah, look at that. It's kind of cool to see like those old models, like the hair looks so bad. I didn't know a lot about, you know, the exchange stuff, like just trying to figure things out. I would do a better job nowadays, I think. But and this was like the initial sketch. Look at that. It was just to capture that kind of like silhouette, right, from the eyes and stuff. Yeah, like the sketch looked like this. Actually, this is like after the sketch looked more like this. This is like 1 or 2 nights sketch, right? Just get some of that. But yeah, guys, I'm open to like questions, whatever you guys want to say. You want to tell me like, this sucked, I want my money back. Was it too late, suckers? It's already all spent. I already bought some arcades and stuff now. Too late. No, just to tell you guys, man, seriously, this is like, it's always awesome to have artists to work with, especially right now with the pandemic stuff. It's like, man, it sucks to be on your own and kind of like away from the studio. You know, it's like I don't go to the studio anymore. It's just at home. So you only see like your kids and your wife, you know, it's like the world out there. You're kind of like oblivious about it. And having people with common interests, you know, I know I'm the one like in charge of the shipping here, but at the same time, we are all like pirates here in a way. Like not pirates because it's a bad word. It's almost like you guys are pirating my shit. No, we are like all like, you know, we're all captains in here, right? But I'm the main captain of the ship. But it's cool to just like share interests and exchange things. You know, it's like I always learn a lot with my students. A lot of times, you know, it's like you guys gave me lots of cool tips as well. So I really appreciate that. I try to incorporate that to the next classes, you know, so I can get things to work better. And because this is so organic, it's got like it's like you know, it's like it's not a GMO class, right? It's like it's organic class. So everything is very based on the roots here. So it can be a little bit messy because, you know, it's like it's very, you know, it's like pretty much like me in my pajamas in here teaching you guys. It's not like a professional setting. But in terms of the information, which I think is the most important part, I try to really give everything I can, you know, it's like to you guys within the constraint of the time that we have. But I really appreciate you guys. The thing that makes me the happiest is to see the results later, you know, it's like see how you guys incorporate things you learned and then see the results. Like when my students post stuff, you know, I was like, man, this guy's kicking my ass already. I was like, what's wrong with him? You know, it's like, he makes me really happy, like jealous. So I want to go back and do better, but happy as well. So thank you so much, guys.
No, thanks to you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris.
Actually, I have a question.
Yeah.
What would be the possibility that you would give us a week before you did the last critique that we could like, because all this stuff comes at you so fast.
Oh, so fast. Yeah, exactly. You know, if you guys want that, I'm totally okay with that. If you want to, for example, yeah, if you want to skip this weekend, oh man, I'm going to be grateful because I want to get some rest as well. Yeah, we can totally move this to the next weekend if you guys are okay with it.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I have a question
Please.
also.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Go ahead, Gloria. You first.
Please. No. Please, the time. Yeah, next Saturday, please.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I have a very so busy with work that I actually having a start. So until how long I have basically to submit feedback, you know, I can get feedback from you.
From feedback, what do you mean,
like you know, show you the progress and get feedback until when I have, because basically I'm gonna start probably next week.
Okay,
Like, from the
yeah.
beginning. I haven't been watching the classes, but like been really busy. Like I work at a gaming studio, so
Yeah.
like this is launch date, and you know it's crunch time. Basically.
Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, I would say like the deadline would be like not tomorrow, but like next Friday. So you have like a full week. And what I do is normally like I go on your own pace, you know. It's like, so for example, like I'm not gonna give you like assignments. You guys are all adults, you know. It's like, you know how to use your time. Sometimes people like you, I mean, like you're a professional and you have all those deadlines and stuff. It's hard, you know. And you know, people sometimes like subscribe to the class and then something shows up in the studio and then all of a sudden you don't have the time to do it. But I still gonna do anything I can to help you with whatever state you are at, you know. If you have like a previous model from the past that you did, if you want me to review that instead, I can do that. If you have like a sketch, you know, it's like if you're doing just like pore detail. You know, it's like anything you need from me, I'm gonna be there to help you with whatever you have. You know.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, guys.
That'll help a lot.
yeah, definitely, man. Like this is actually a good suggestion for the future too, because I know what you mean. I mean, like we just spoke about hair like for 3 straight days, right? And all of a sudden, like on Saturday, I was like, "What? A bald model again? You lazy bastards!" Like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Yeah,
I know I've
guys.
started over like 4 times.
Yeah, man. Yeah, with the pores, I mean, like in some of those classes I started and I had to redo the whole thing, you know, a few times. And that's why I tell my students, you know, it's like, dude, it's like, just don't stress with that. This is something that takes some time, you know. It's like I'm still getting used to my own shit, but it really takes time, man. Like and like the amount of time that you have to dedicate to create something realistic, it's just like, it's pretty insane, you know. It's like, it's a matter of like how much further you're gonna push, you know. It's like some people, I got a comment yesterday on my Instagram. Someone said like, "Oh, your unfinished model looks already better than my finished models." It was like, yeah, but the
That's
thing
what I
is,
think.
but the thing is, like, this is very unfinished for me. And I was like, there's a lot I want to do. For example, like you see the lips in here. A single thing, for example, like a pressure. I don't have like a little bulge right here in the contact between the lips. That's bothering me. You know, it's like I want to create a little pressure in here to make sure that it looks like there's some compression happening there, more variation, stuff like that. Every time I render something, I'm my worst critic. You know, I'm gonna go over the whole thing. I'm gonna take it apart. I don't like when people do it because I'm still working on it and I know what's wrong. So, for example, like I have this thing about like I never post like finished work because I want the people to see the problems with the model, and I try to give a description. Okay, I'm unhappy with this, that, and still people feel like, oh no, but you know, we should change this. And I kind of like, trust me, I'm the worst. I'm already seeing like I have like 200 notes for that. It's just that you don't have enough time to go over the whole thing. It takes like weeks and months, you know, to go over the whole thing. But eventually I'm gonna get there. It's just like it bothers me, man. And for example, today, since I did this render today, I'm liking it. Tomorrow I'm probably gonna start hating a lot of things about it, and I'm gonna start actually going back. And I was like, okay, let me redo this or that. It's a never-ending process, you know. But just so you know, you're not alone if you're having trouble. You know, it's like redoing stuff. I'm redoing stuff constantly. It's just like it's yeah. If you're too happy with your model, you're doing something wrong.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
You're not a real artist.
Yeah. No, you have to be unhappy, man. Like not miserable, because misery it's very, you know, dangerous, right? Like you get to this dark place and stuff. It's just like learning how to ride the wave, right? Like you get like a little depressed, and then it was like, okay, I get it. And then you go to Instagram and Artstation, and like a lot of badass work, and you just get a little bit more depressed. I was like, oh, you know what I need right now is some hot tea. Close the browser, not look at that shit anymore, and go watch some movies. You know, it's like go play with the kids or something. And then 3 days later, it's like, you know what? I'm not gonna go for a full-on super realistic stuff. I'm gonna go do a sketch. I'm gonna practice my primary, secondary forms. I'm gonna improve on that. And then you have fun. You get in the mood. You know, it's like, and then you post on Instagram, and people nowadays they are educated enough to recognize the difference between like a model that you explore in the forms and doing a sketch from something that's an attempt of hyper-realism, you know. So it's cool because people are very open to whatever you post, you know. It's like you post something that is just a sketch, as long as a cool sketch that has consistency with the forms and everything, people get it, you know. We are in a point that we have plenty of very educated artists, like 3D modelers these days. So it's pretty cool. The community got better.
On this model, do you ever put like a moisture line between the lips?
I did with I think it was with my African guy, actually. With that one was just how you say, like specular, right? So let's see African tribes and the images. That was just a specular map, actually. But
So you wouldn't do like what you do with the eyeballs?
I didn't in that case, but what I did in the past was to use like some saliva droplets I showed you guys the other day on the teeth and the gums, right? But not the lips themselves. Oh, this was a joke I posted, I think. Let's see. Step 1, model a pore. Step 2, finish the entire damn thing. That's my tutorial. Chris Costa Online's classes would be like. So I like making fun of myself, you know. But yeah, you see, like there's a little bit of that, but it looks a little funky in there. I think the reflection was too high, you know. There's something looks dry, so I would have to redo that. But this is like me myself doing some memes in there, helping the community.
Hey Chris.
Yes.
One question.
Mhm.
I never really know what to do with like the background. Have you got any good tips for like just kind of how you can kind of make your model look nice, but quickly and simply, sort of thing?
The background, that's a good question. I mean, like for those guys, I try to keep them like in the environment of the HDRI, for example. Like in this case, it's just like an outdoors lighting, right, to get that little mood and stuff. In this case, it's like the bus station kind of thing that he's waiting for the bus in Africa. I don't know, man. It's like it's the kind of stuff like I do to test it, and then I think about the contest. You know, it's like okay, this is probably like in the 1920, the guys at the bus station waiting for something, right? Yeah, I like to think about patterns. I think patterns are cool, but in terms of the background itself, I tend to go for something a little bit more classic, like you know, it's like a plain color that goes against like the go well with the color of the skin, you know, with skin tone. This one is, in this case, was green, so it doesn't have a lot of contrast. But for some of those models, I actually added this. What I did actually was this thing. I did a search on Google for what's that, like a concrete pattern, so concrete texture basically. And I started with that, and then from that point on, I can even show you here what I have in Maya. So like this this background that I'm using for him right here, right? It's kind of like this classic background that we still use for photography in the studio nowadays. They sell like those backgrounds, the backdrops from like different colors, and they all look kind of cloudy. Some of them have more details. Some of them are a little bit more like airbrushy. It looks kind of cheesy, right? But this one was kind of inspired by the paintings themselves. And if I look at the mapping here, it looks like this. So let's take a look at this. The shader, just so I can see what's in there actually. So you see, like it looks like that, but in fact, I'm using this concrete 2 in here that I found on the interwebs. I hope nobody sues me. I'm not doing, you know, I'm not selling this work here, man. It's just a class. Anyway, so let's go here. So I have my exposure. I have the concrete in here. So let's see how this looks like. How can I see it?
Probably build it with Maya textures too.
Yeah, probably this one. So it has this look I found on the interwebs, right? Thank you, person who took a picture of concrete. I hope you don't sue me. It's just concrete, man. I can take a picture too. All right, so concrete. And then on top of that, I have a procedure, just like you said. So I have the noise procedure in here. And the way that I have it plugged is like this. So I have the base in here with the, so this one is applied as a concrete, but the concrete, I am actually adding a noise to mix the concrete with something else. So if I click this one, that's where I plug my noise. And then here I have a couple of things like my pearly noise mixing with a color balance. So I'm adding a little bit more like a reddish right here. So if I change this, it's gonna probably change the entire look. So this is just like for the noise itself. But then if I go back in here, so I have like this color gain. So it's getting a little bit more towards, you know, it's like whatever color I want to do. This is still like more concrete now, but I can make it a little bit warmer or cooler just by playing with this. You could potentially use like a color correction node as well to do that. So basically what it is just like a concrete with a lot of noise applied on top of it. And then at the end of the day, you know, it's like if you do enough tests, you can get something like that looks like that, or, you know, it's like this has lots of depth of field, obviously. Without the depth of field, it looks more like, let's see. So these ones here have not a lot of depth of field, so you can actually see, actually those ones still have depth of field. Let's see, maybe before of that, this guy here. So it's pretty plain. You see, like it's the concrete, but with the noise applied on top, and the noise is actually being colorized towards, you know, the more like orangey. But on top of that, it's not only that, right? I still have like this vignetting that's being applied to the whole thing, so it integrates things. And also there's a light that's coming from below. Oh, you didn't tell me anything about that light, Chris. That's the whole secret. You're hiding stuff here. You said you're not going to hide things. Oh man, what a farce! Let's see. Oh man, it's like
you're going to tell us everything.
God damn it, autosave. All right, I think he's saved now. Let's see. Let's just unhide here. Yeah, he said he would show everything. He's hiding the spotlight that does the whole magic. Oh, okay. Let me try to find it here in my outliner. It's basically a simple light like this, and it's actually pointing.
Tell us where the art button is, though.
Was that make art, right? Oh,
Yeah,
I just gave you a tutorial. Make a pour and then finish the whole fucking thing. So this one here. So basically, like you see the light, like the plane is very close to him. So it's kind of pretty close, so I can get some shadows in there. And this light here is actually coming from below and illuminating the background in here. So basically, like from here is actually more towards that side. But like anywhere you can put in here, and I was like maybe a little here, just to create this little a halo around around him, you know. It's like, so he has this light coming from below that actually illuminating a little bit more of this side here. And that came from basically like observing like some references that I have, like from some of the paintings that those guys, they did this by, you know, they had their own way of doing it. But you see, like, for example, here, you get like this very strong shadow in there. It's a little bit more illumination this side. So having like a little light coming from here, it really helps to accentuate the silhouette, especially someone dressed in black like this. So it really gets like things to detach, you know. Silhouette is very important, not only like the outside silhouette, but the inside silhouette as well. So, you know, just like trying to help with that. So that light can really help with this. And then on top of that, the vignetting to add like a similar mood as something like this. So more like a spotlight right here, right? And then a little bit more, although the vignette is going to would cover like his head as well. But, you know, try to get like a similar mood overall, you know. But I think the best thing you can look at for references for the best ways to create like nice backgrounds and stuff, look for like photography examples, like studio photographs, and then try to find, for example, like start with black and white studio photographs. Or if you search Google, for example, for Rembrandt light photographs, you're going to find some very high contrast ones, sometimes with an interesting you know, background. I tend to look those backgrounds from back in the day when they used this stuff, because they kept like very mysterious, especially the Baroques, right? Like this period of Baroque, like someone who like Velázquez or Caravaggio or you know, Rembrandt. It's always a mystery what's in the background, you know. It's like you barely can see a little bit of light. It's mostly like textures. It can be like an old wall or something like that. So I kind of like that for portraiture, you know. It's like and still nowadays they still use something similar to recreate this kind of like a classical portrait kind of look. So I kind of look like that, you know, unless I'm testing like HDRIs, like I said, so you kind of show the character inserted within that environment, you know.
Yeah, I look at celebrity photographers.
Yeah, that too.
Because,
although there's a lot of
they're
Photoshop here
big
too.
butts for the
Yeah.
big
There you go. Yeah, like a picture of the Kardashians, right? Like it's probably gonna be just like a giant butt in front of your face,
or lips.
and like I remember like when Joe Rogan was talking about her butt, I was like, man, this doesn't look natural at all. He said like a butt has to have it has to have an end, right? It has a little end. And that thing is just gonna go like this, and it goes forward, and kind of like the fat when they
gravity.
Yeah, when they inject the fat base, like they're getting fat from some other part of the body, from the belly, and injecting back in their butts. And it doesn't have like the anatomy, it just like slide down to the to the yeah, it's like a very weird. Actually, the thighs still look thin. It doesn't have a transition between the big butt and the thigh. It's very thin, and then all of a sudden, like bloop, it's like a light bulb.
Lollipop butt.
Yeah, man, it's so weird. And people
They forgot to add noise.
not-
Talk about the noise.
I'm not making fun of the look of the person, but I just
No,
think,
I
like,
agree. It's like a weird bubble.
I just think that the plastic surgeons, man, they're like, they butcher these people, right?
They're not good artists.
And
yeah.
they get so addicted to that, man. Like the person, right? Like, and they are such like deceivers and the hypnotists. You know, it's like they kind of like, oh, you know what? Yeah, the first one that we do, it normally looks a little weird like that, but the next one's gonna look better, and then it makes look worse, you know, and it keeps going. Like, if you look at their faces, like when they're 60-year-olds, I was like, who is this person? It's like, oh my god, look at Madonna right now. Like, just, you know, like, have some respect for yourself, age gracefully. We're gonna love that, man. You're gonna love to see like those wise marks in your face.
You gotta look at the real life Barbie.
They all look like lions, man. They
Oh,
have like
geez.
those gigantic chicken implants and look like a lion. I was like, what's wrong with you?
They only use the inflate tool.
Yeah, I mean, like, man, I'm not a fan of that, as you can tell. I mean, like, I'm a fan of natural beauty, you know. It's like, and that goes with whatever, however you look, man. I mean, like, when I was sculpting this kid, like, for the past class, my intention was to actually pay respect to the forms the way they are, not necessarily like an ideal of beauty or anything, but pay respect for what it is, you know. And I would love to sculpt someone like an older celebrity that it looks natural, like, you know, like, it's so hard to find. Because they get addicted, and it's like this pressure from the studios to keep them young forever, right? Like in the music industry, like, oh, you have to look young forever. It's like, it's bullshit, man. It's just like, it's so bizarre. And they get like all those psychological problems. They get depressed, you know. It's like, then they see like a younger person taking their place and stuff, and all of a sudden, like, oh, I have to compete. And it's brutal because the studio's definitely not going to give them the job. They're going to give to someone younger, you know. So it's just like, it's so brutal. I remember like when my wife started to talk about like, oh, our kids are so talented, you know, it's like they could be actors and stuff. I was like, dude, keep them away from this weird industry. That's gonna fuck them up pretty good.
30s and 40s, they used to take fish hooks and fishing line and pull their face back like that, and they tie it back to get the facelift.
Exactly. Yeah. It's still do all kinds of stuff. I mean, like, granted, there's some excellent like plastic surgeons that I don't understand how they do that, man. It's just like, to me, it's like black magic. Sometimes they actually fix people really like a very natural result. And to me, like, as a sculptor, I mean, like, it's like hard enough to sculpt the form to look correct, like without having to deal with like with the post process of the healing, you know. So I to me, it's a mystery how they imagine that, okay, this is gonna swallow like shit, it's gonna look really weird, and then it's going to shrink again, and then the form is going to look correct at the end. It was like, how can you tell that? Well, probably like butchering a lot of people in the process to learn, but but some of them
actually I follow somebody on Instagram that does do the corrective surgery, like if someone has a large nose or sort of just abnormal, but it really looks beautiful. It's actually amazing how it helps them, like a bulbous nose or something.
Yeah, I see.
And it's not like in a fake way. It's really natural. Yeah.
I've seen some of those, man. Some of those guys are actually very good sculptors, you know. I mean, like, we have this in all areas.
The process, seeing ahead. I don't know how they see ahead.
The thing is, if you can tell they've had plastic surgery, they didn't have a good plastic surgeon.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, they're, you know, with actors, I mean, like, if they had the plastic surgery very young, for example, like Mark Hamill, right? He had the car accident, he busted his face, he got those scars in the nose, a little crooked. And then you look at him nowadays, I mean, like, his nose is really crooked right now. It was just slightly crooked back in the day. It's just like the scar tissue, you know, it's like the way that the face grows, the scar tissue doesn't grow at the same rate. On top of that, like, God knows what they did with the cartilage or his nose, for example. Like, maybe they got part of the cartilage from his ear or some other place to actually replace that, and that the way the heals was a different rate, something like that. You know, it's like something you cannot predict what the scar tissue is going to do. So a lot of these people, they look really good right now. When they are 60, God knows what's going to happen to them, right? But it's like it's a process of healing, so it's weird. Yeah. Anyway, guys,
the fame and cocaine.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Up the cartilage. Who knows?
I just wanted to ask. It's like quite a bit off topic.
Yeah.
But can you just share where you got your chair from? I really love it, man, because the chair that you're using.
The chair that I use it. Oh, the chair.
Yeah.
This is like, man, I got this chair a long time ago, and it's not cheap. It was like, I think it was like $1,200 or something. It's like, let's see, like, what's the name of it?
Herman Miller.
Yeah, Herman Miller. Yeah, if you go to the the back looks like this.
The best chairs ever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I searched for it and couldn't find it, and I was like quite fascinated with it. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But I just thought I'd ask you.
They had those traditional ones, you know, it's like for you know, it's like they kind of like looks like a mesh, right? We used those ones at studio a lot, but this one was released a couple of years ago. That's kind of like more plastic looking. It looks a little cheap, but it's very good. You know, it's like very ergonomic. And I thought many times about like, man, should I get some of it like this? You know, it's like, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna be teaching, dude. I should invest in something that's comfortable for me. And I was like, enough that my posture is shit. You know, it's like at least I can have my shitty posture in a nice chair. That's actually, it's not gonna destroy me further. You know, but yeah, like look for Herman Miller's. The website they have this one, and you can configure. Actually, you can get like a shiny metal, footing and stuff like that. For this one here,
Sometimes you can find used ones.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
You can find used ones.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And the other thing that I did, I actually got from Amazon. You can order. They have like those wheels. They're kind of like roller blade wheels for chairs.
Oh, my wife just got those.
Oh yeah. So basically, like if you have a carpet like I have, they are much bigger and they roll very nicely. They're kind of like a polyurethane, right? So you can actually buy some of those for replacement too. You know.
And they're quiet.
Very quiet. They're very nice. Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for that.
Yeah, no problem. Guys, it's been a pleasure. You know, it's like we're gonna keep like seeing each other. I cannot wait to see the work you guys gonna do. And let's I'm gonna send like the it's like the official note so people are not surprised that we are moving this to the next Saturday, not this one after tomorrow, the one next week. And then that's give you all of us, actually, even myself, like some room to actually breathe and produce some work. You know, it's like don't feel bad about like not being able to finish anything. You can tell that I didn't finish my work, you know, so we're going to keep cranking those things because that's part of the process. So
awesome.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, sir, you just a quick, you make it look so simple when you're just doing your clay buildup. And when I'm doing it, I'm like, why am I not getting there? You're like,
yeah.
But you know what? It comes with practice, you know. It's like after you do a few times, you're gonna feel like, okay, this is getting easier. You know, it's like it doesn't get harder. I think, especially if you have some direction. You know, it's like when I was trying to find out how those things work on my own, it was like a fight because I would go in a route and then I was like have to backpedal all the way. But the stuff that I show you guys here is kind of like a path has some clarity. You know, it's like you can improve on everything that I did in here, but in terms of having like a base to start from, it's not like you're lost anymore. You know, it's like you have a base you can actually start from, and then if you follow the whole thing, you can create something fairly decent from the get-go, I think, you know. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. It's
Thank
been a
you.
pleasure.
Thank
It's
you.
been an honor, sir. Thank you so much.
Same. Thank you, guys. Have a
Thanks,
good one,
guys.
and I see you
Take
next
care.
week. Right?
See you
A little
next week.
lacking
Sir.
to peace, but whatever. I'll forgive you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Noise. It's all about noise.
It's not about noise yet. Make some noise. Make some noise. Yeah, there you go.
Go. All right. Take care.
Take care, guys.
Thank you so much, sir.
Have a
See
good
you,
one,
sir.
everybody.
Bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye, sir. See you.